Welcome everyone to Firstpost America. I'm Eric Ham, coming to you live from our studios here in Washington, D.C. And today we'll take you from the United States and around the world, covering all the top stories of the day. But before that, here's a look at the latest global headlines. The United States and India begin 2 days of trade talks amid geopolitical tensions after Washington imposed tariffs on New Delhi over its purchase of Russian oil. The U.S. ambassador to Turkey says Washington is holding discussions on Ankara rejoining the F-35 jet program, adding the U.S. hopes the talks will produce a breakthrough in the coming months. Brazil approves a bill that could sharply reduce former President Jair Bolsonaro's prison sentence for his attempts to overthrow the government. Airbus's CEO concedes a likely defeat in the annual orders race against Boeing, acknowledging that the American manufacturer could win for the first time in 6 years, aided by settlements over U.S. tariff disputes. And UNESCO adds India's Diwali festival to its intangible cultural heritage list. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says the listing will make Diwali even more popular worldwide. We begin in Washington, where President Donald Trump has stirred new controversy with remarks that cast doubt on future U.S. support for Ukraine. In an interview with Politico, the U.S. president said Europe was weak, decaying, and failing to take responsibility for ending the war, accusing European governments of letting Kyiv fight until they drop. He argued that Russia now held the upper hand on the battlefield and urged Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to play ball by accepting a deal that involves ceding territory to Moscow.
Not easy with Russia because Russia has the upper hand, and they always did. They're much bigger, they're much stronger in that sense. I give Ukraine I give the people of Ukraine and the military of Ukraine tremendous credit for the bravery and for the fighting and all of that. But at some point, size will win generally.
Trump repeated that he's focused on America first and questioned whether European countries could remain strong allies, describing their approach to the war as ineffective. He said European leaders talk, don't produce, and suggested they had unrealistic expectations about how the conflict should end.
They're not doing a good job. Europe is not doing a good job in many ways. They're not doing a good job.
I want to ask
you
about
They talk too much, and they're not producing. We're talking about Ukraine. They talk, but they don't produce. And the war just keeps going on and on.
Now, Trump didn't rule out further pressure on Russia, including sanctions, but did make clear he expects Kyiv to move towards compromise quickly. His remarks have only added to growing concerns in European capitals that Washington's priorities are now shifting in ways that could disadvantage Ukraine at a critical moment in the conflict.
But most European nations, they're decaying. They should be freaked out by what they're doing to their countries. They're destroying their countries.
Well, European Council President...
And they're people I like.
Zelensky responded to the growing pressure by accelerating diplomatic efforts. After days of meetings with European leaders, he said Ukraine was preparing a revised set of proposals for Washington and expected to hand them over within a day. He also insisted that Kyiv was working on its own detailed framework, including points on security guarantees as well as future reconstruction.
We are talking to the Americans, and we are already talking to the Europeans. There are 3 documents. We are working at the level of our advisors, NSAs. We are working today, and we are working tomorrow. I think tomorrow we will submit it.
During the interview, President Trump also reiterated a key Russian talking point, accusing Ukraine of using wartime conditions as an excuse to delay elections. Now, under martial law, national votes are legally suspended, but his remarks prompted Zelensky to announce that he is in fact ready hold elections within 60 to 90 days if allies can ensure security. He also said missile strikes make voting extremely dangerous, but he's also asked lawmakers to draft proposals that could allow elections during wartime if necessary.
I am ready for the elections. Moreover, I ask now, and I declare it openly, the United States of America to help me, including together with European colleagues, ensure security for the elections. And then, in the next 60 to 90 days, Ukraine will be ready to hold the elections. And I personally have the will and readiness for this.
Now, Zelensky stressed the decision belongs to Ukrainians and the Ukrainians alone, and warned that no foreign power should determine the country's political timetable. He also made clear that Ukraine's constitution doesn't allow the right to give up its territory, even as discussions with the United States continue. Canada is making one of its biggest investments in decades, and it's aimed squarely at attracting U.S. researchers. As American universities confront funding freezes and political pressure under the Trump administration, Ottawa is now rolling out over $1 billion plan to attract top intellectual talent. Prime Minister Mark Carney has announced that Canada Global Impact Plus Research Talent Initiative, a $1.2 billion package designed to recruit up to 1,000 leading international researchers over the next 12 years. Now, the program includes more than $700 million dedicated to hiring senior researchers, nearly $300 million for new research infrastructure, and over $100 million to bring in top-tier doctoral fellows as well as postdoc fellows, and nearly $90 million to support early career scientists. Now, Canada's officials are pitching the plan as both an investment in national competitiveness and a direct contrast to the research climate in the United States. Canada's industry minister said, without mentioning the United States, academic freedoms and cutting-edge research are being constrained elsewhere, and that Canada intends to double down on science by welcoming the world's best minds.
As other countries constrain academic freedoms and undermine cutting-edge research, Canada is investing in and doubling down on science by attracting the top minds from around the world to work alongside exceptional Canadian researchers.
Now, the timing is not accidental, but purely opportunistic, as the Trump administration has frozen or canceled multiple federal research grants, as well as gone to war with many of the top universities in the country, including the likes of Harvard University. University labs across the U.S. have been forced to scale back, cut costs, and slow hiring. Polls show a rising share of American researchers are now open to moving overseas, a shift ordinarily not seen. Academics moving to Canada underline what they call a challenging time for higher ed in the United States.
You know, there have been policies over the past year which have been, I'd say, difficult for many people in higher ed in the U.S. And it depends on which set of policies one's looking at, whether it's research support or international students or other things, but that has been, it's been somewhat of a challenging time.
Meanwhile, Canadian academics say the initiative will build a strong base for science and innovation in the country. And reportedly, Canadian universities are already lining up names of international researchers they want to bring in. A number of American academics, including 3 renowned Yale scholars, have already announced they'll soon be leaving for greener pastures. Other U.S.-based academics are leaving for Europe, including Nobel Prize-winning economists who are leaving MIT for the University of Zurich. In fact, the Austrian Academy of Sciences says it has recruited 25 top researchers from the United States this year alone. For Washington, the trend is a glaring red warning sign. Global research competition is intensifying, and Canada is now positioning itself as a stable, well-funded alternative for academics who feel squeezed by the growing polarization in the United States. And now, from poaching to layoffs, the U.S. job market is facing its toughest year since the COVID-19 pandemic, with layoffs climbing to a 5-year high. A new report shows that more than 1 million Americans have lost their jobs from January to November of this year. That's more than 50% during the same period of last year in one of the highest totals in decades. In November alone, employers announced over 71,000 job cuts, well above the 57,000 mark that was reported in November of 2024. Grim numbers considering President Trump and Republicans often claim that the economy is the strongest it's ever been under their watch. But rising layoffs, affordability struggles, and high costs are seeing millions of Americans fuming at the empty boasting. A survey from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York found that nearly 40% of Americans expect to be worse off financially next year, the highest level since late 2023. It suggests many people are losing confidence in the economic outlook.
After years of lower unemployment rates and plentiful jobs in most sectors of the economy, America has in the past year seen numerous cracks in that sturdy wall, but it's too early to tell if the fissures being created are permanent.
And it's several sectors that are driving the cuts. Tech, telecom, and retail are at the top of the list. Amazon alone reduced 14,000 corporate positions, with the total possibly reaching 30,000. Telecommunication companies cut over 15,000 roles in November, the highest monthly total in 5 years. Retail and warehouse roles are also shrinking, each sector crossing 90,000 layoffs this year. Even government jobs took a hit, with more than 300,000 public sector positions cut through October, thanks to Elon Musk and Doge, no doubt. Many businesses are choosing to rely more on technology and fewer workers to reduce cost and speed up operations.
Consumer spending is slowing as people grapple with higher costs and stubborn interest rates. Companies are betting on AI and automation to do more with less. And a lot of businesses that hired aggressively after the pandemic are simply correcting course. They overestimated how much staff they'd actually need.
Now, other reasons include rising expenses, slower consuming spending, and economic uncertainty related to tariffs. In November, over 20,000 layoffs were tied to restructuring, over 17,000 to closures, and more than 15,000 to wider market pressures. Many companies are also freezing hiring, making it harder for laid-off workers to find new jobs. For families, the impact is immediate. Budgets are getting tight, job searches are taking even longer, and confidence in the economy is quickly slipping. And with affordability still a major issue heading into 2026, if the White House doesn't get ahead of the economic nightmare the bloodbath Trump and his party experienced at the polls this year will only continue next year. Next, we discussed a new kind of divorce, one that just doesn't divide homes, cars, or even bank accounts, but digital fortunes hidden behind passwords and secret codes. As cryptocurrency moves from wallets to courtrooms, divorce lawyers are turning into detectives hunting for assets that can vanish with a single tap. With Bitcoin's wild swings and private keys deciding who truly owns what, couples are discovering that the toughest part of splitting up may be just in fact now invisible. Here's the story with more.
Divorce is never simple. Two people, one life, and a pile of things suddenly up for negotiation. Children, the house, the car, the dog, even the old aquarium no one cleaned. But now, a new character has entered the divorce drama. One that doesn't bark, doesn't break, and cannot be found under the bed: crypto. For many couples, crypto wealth grew quietly in the background. A few coins here, a small investment there, nothing dramatic. Until suddenly, it was. Then came the crash. Bitcoin fell. Ether slumped. Confidence cracked. But the bigger problem wasn't the price, it was the secrecy. Because, unlike a savings account, crypto doesn't come with a neat little folder marked Joint Financials. Crypto can be hidden, moved instantly, shifted silently, all without a spouse ever knowing. There have been several cases where couples on the verge of divorce have used crypto to hide their assets. Experts say this is the new version of offshore money. Except now, it moves at the speed of a text message, and it exists only if you hold one thing: the private key, a long code that decides everything. So, in the middle of divorce court, lawyers are turning into detectives. They subpoena exchanges. They dig through blockchain transactions. They ask the big question, what actually exists? Once they find it, the job gets even trickier. How do you divide something that lives entirely online? Courts don't split wallets, they split the value. And that value can jump or fall within hours. In one case after another, lawyers say the pattern repeats. A spouse had no idea their partner was buying crypto. Suddenly, those hidden coins surface. And with them comes something else, a massive tax bill. Sometimes for the person who didn't even know the coins existed. It's happening more and more. Millennials hold the most crypto, and they're now entering peak divorce years. Two trends colliding at once. Legally, coins bought during a marriage are usually shared property, like a second home or a joint investment. But splitting it is another story. Couples have three choices. Divide the coins on the blockchain, sell everything and split the cash, or compensate one spouse with other assets. Sounds easy, right? But it's not. Crypto prices jump around like a thriller movie plot. In just 2 months, Bitcoin plunged from over $126,000 to a record low of $80,000, a 35% crash. That kind of swing makes negotiations explode. Should they split now, wait for a rebound, or freeze everything until the market calms? Sometimes the simplest solution is to create two wallets, one for each. But many people don't want the responsibility of holding a wallet, so couples often choose a different path. They hand everything to a neutral third party. They let them sell the crypto later, when the price recovers, when the dust settles, when emotions cool. In the end, crypto isn't just reshaping markets, it's reshaping breakups. Even a divorce now has a digital shadow. As the world goes deeper into crypto, the battles won't just be emotional, they'll be encrypted.
And finally, from coffee counters to cockpit cabins, employees are now doing more than just their day job. They're in fact stepping in front of the camera. Big companies like Starbucks, Delta Airlines, and others are now hiring social media influencers as employees, hence turning staff members into official social media influencers of the brands. The companies are letting them share behind-the-scenes glimpses of their workplaces. And for the employees, it's a chance to showcase their creativity, gain recognition, and even enjoy the perks like work trips and professional development opportunities. In our final story, we take you behind the scenes where influencers are shaping and building corporate brands.
Social media is changing the way people work, and some companies are embracing it. From coffee shops to airlines, employers are now encouraging employees to become content creators for their brands, showcasing their workplaces online and giving audiences a behind-the-scenes look. Starbucks, along with companies like Delta Airlines, Ulta Beauty, and Hugo Boss, is also recruiting social media influencers as employees. These employees are not social media stars, as some of them have less than 1,000 followers, but they love creating content. The goal is simple. Let workers highlight their jobs, craft content with company support, and help market the brand in a more authentic way. For employees, it's a chance to hone content creation skills, gain visibility, and earn perks such as work trips and professional development opportunities. Some even list it on their resumes.
I have grown up on social media and I love creating content. I thought this would be a great intersection of the two things.
Bridget Barron is a Starbucks barista and computer science student from Charlotte. She is part of Starbucks' Green Apron Creators Initiative, which encourages baristas to post about promotions and events. Creators are paid per post, but the company keeps the amounts private. And these employees have to get approvals before they post. Other companies are following similar paths. Chicago-based restaurant chain Portillo's picked 15 staffers for its Maxwell Street Mavens program, inviting employees to create content around menu items and national food holidays. Some employees admitted that they aren't usually comfortable on camera, but participating gave them a chance to grow personally and professionally. Even airlines are getting in on the trend. Delta Airlines handpicked 15 frontline employees, from pilots to customer service agents, for a pilot influencer program. They received training on turning workplace experiences into polished social media videos that can reach thousands online. Among them is Pamela Kuchera, a 64-year-old flight attendant who gained thousands of followers posting travel tips on TikTok and Instagram. Now an official Delta influencer, she spends around 5 hours a week producing videos that highlight life at the airline. The strategy is proving popular for both sides. Companies get authentic marketing content, and employees gain experience and visibility in the digital world. As social media continues to blur the lines between work and personal branding, it seems the next wave of influencers may be brewing right at the office. Or maybe behind the coffee bar.
That's going to do it for us today here at Firstpost America. We certainly thank all of you for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you right back here again tomorrow. Thanks everyone for watching.